Liberia takes proactive steps to avert deportations. Foreign Minister's strategic engagement with the U.S. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we bring you insightful, comprehensive, and forward-thinking analysis on the latest African issues. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo, born and raised in Africa. Today we take an in-depth look at Liberia's diplomatic efforts to prevent the deportation of over 1,500 Liberians from the U.S. With tensions rising around U.S. immigration policies, Liberia's government is stepping up to protect its citizens. Stay tuned for a critical breakdown of the situation, its potential implications, and what other African nations can learn from Liberia's response. In January 2025, reports emerged that the United States planned to deport over 1,500 Liberians residing illegally in the country. This development has prompted the Liberian government to engage proactively with U.S. authorities to address the situation. Liberia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Madam Sara Beysolow Nyanti, confirmed that while no official communication had been received from the U.S. government, consultations were underway to understand the specifics of the deportation plans and to seek alternatives. U.S. immigration policy under the Trump administration. The proposed deportations are part of a broader crackdown on illegal immigration under the Trump administration. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, has reportedly listed approximately 1.4 million individuals for deportation as of November 2024. While the exact timeline for these removals remains unclear, reports indicate that deportations of undocumented immigrants have already commenced under the administration's policies. A significant development in this context is the signing of the Lock-and-Riley Act by President Donald Trump. This legislation mandates the detention and potential deportation of undocumented immigrants accused of theft and violent crimes, even before conviction. The law is named after Lock-and-Riley, a 22-year-old nursing student who was killed by an undocumented immigrant in February 2024. The enactment of this law has intensified immigration enforcement across the U.S., with reports indicating that deportations have already begun under the administration's policies. Liberia's diplomatic response. In response to the reports, the Liberian government has been actively engaging with U.S. officials. A statement from the Liberian Embassy in Washington, D.C. confirmed that the government is working with the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia and the U.S. Department of State to address the planned deportation of approximately 1,500 Liberians. The embassy emphasized that the government is committed to protecting the interests of its citizens abroad and is seeking diplomatic solutions. Foreign Minister Nyanti has requested a meeting with the new U.S. Secretary of State to explore alternatives to deportation. Implications for Liberia. The potential deportation of over 1,500 Liberians raises significant concerns regarding the reintegration of these individuals into Liberia's society and economy. The country is already grappling with economic challenges, and the sudden return of many individuals without adequate support systems could exacerbate existing issues. There are questions about what measures the Liberian government, through the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Justice, will implement to receive and reintegrate deportees. Will there be a structured reintegration program, or will deportees face detention upon arrival, as seen under the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration in 2009? Africa-wide context. The situation in Liberia is not an isolated incident but part of a broader trend affecting several African nations. The Trump administration's stricter immigration policies have implications for various African countries, with nationals from nations such as Benin and Nigeria also facing potential deportations. As of November 2024, ICE had documented 1,445,549 non-citizens with final orders of removal, including individuals from these countries. This development underscores the complex realities of immigration policies today and highlights the challenges faced by undocumented immigrants and their home countries. African governments are now tasked with navigating these challenges to protect their citizens and minimize the economic and social impact of such deportations. Forward-looking approach. Looking ahead, it is imperative for African governments, including Liberia, to develop comprehensive strategies to address the root causes of irregular migration. This includes investing in economic development, creating job opportunities, and enhancing education systems to reduce the push factors that lead individuals to migrate illegally. Additionally, Strengthening diplomatic relations with countries that host significant numbers of African migrants can facilitate better management of migration flows and ensure the protection of citizens abroad. While the immediate focus is on the deportation of Liberians from the United States, this situation serves as a catalyst for broader discussions on migration policies, diplomatic relations, and the socio-economic development of African nations. A proactive and collaborative approach is essential to effectively address the challenges posed by irregular migration and to safeguard the interests of African citizens both at home and abroad. Global migration trends and the African response. The situation in Liberia, with thousands of its citizens potentially facing deportation, is part of a larger global shift in immigration policies that affects many African countries. Globally, the tightening of immigration policies, especially in Western nations, is creating ripple effects for migrants from Africa, where economic conditions often push people to seek better opportunities abroad. The Trump administration's stance on immigration has influenced similar policies in other regions, including Europe. In Africa, many governments are grappling with the challenges posed by the return of deported citizens. South Africa, for example, has been at the forefront of efforts to control migration through measures such as stricter visa requirements and deportation campaigns aimed at addressing illegal immigration. This has significantly affected migrant communities, especially from countries like Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, where citizens often migrate in search of work or stability. Many of these deported individuals find themselves without sufficient resources to reintegrate into their home countries, which strains local economies and services. The pressure to find solutions for reintegration is mounting as governments struggle to manage the socio-economic impact of such policies. South Africa's response to migration pressures. South Africa has recently made strides in addressing illegal immigration through a mix of law enforcement measures and visa reforms aimed at boosting the economy. The government's efforts to tighten immigration controls are particularly felt by migrant communities from neighboring African countries. As of October 2024, South Africa introduced visa reforms aimed at addressing illegal migration, while also attempting to capitalize on the potential economic benefits that could be derived from attracting skilled labor through more flexible visa policies. However, these measures have had mixed results. Many migrants, particularly from countries like Malawi, face severe challenges as they are pushed to leave South Africa due to the enforcement of stricter immigration policies. Their return to their countries of origin often leads to additional strain on already fragile economies and services. The European dimension, a parallel to African deportations. Similarly, in Europe, migration policies have seen significant shifts, especially with the rise of conservative leadership in countries like Italy. Under Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's administration, Italy has experienced a notable decrease in illegal immigration. According to the Italian Foreign Minister, the government has overseen a 64% reduction in the number of illegal immigrants, a figure they boast as a success in the face of mounting European pressure to curb migration from Africa and the Middle East. The Italian approach has involved tightening border controls and working with countries in North Africa to manage the flow of migrants. While these measures have been framed as success stories by some governments, the broader implications for African migrants facing deportation and their subsequent reintegration into their home countries are concerning. These global trends highlight the delicate balance governments must strike between managing migration and ensuring the welfare of their citizens abroad. While tightening immigration controls may address certain political or economic concerns, the humanitarian impact on deported individuals and the strain it places on receiving countries is undeniable. Countries like Liberia, South Africa, and Italy serve as case studies of the complex realities that governments face as they try to balance national interests with international cooperation and human rights. Liberia's diplomatic challenge and strategic engagement. Liberia's situation underscores the broader challenges faced by African governments in protecting their citizens abroad. The response from Liberia's government, which involves direct engagement with U.S. authorities, is a critical step in addressing the potential deportation crisis. The Liberian government is working hard to avoid a situation like the one seen under the Obama administration, when dozens of Liberians were deported, many without criminal records. These individuals faced detention upon arrival, and it took concerted efforts from civil society groups to secure their release. Liberia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sara Beysolow Nyanti, has emphasized the importance of proactive engagement with U.S. authorities to negotiate a more favorable outcome for those facing deportation. The goal is to avoid the damaging consequences of mass deportations and ensure that Liberians abroad are treated with dignity and respect. However, the government's success in this regard will depend on the quality of its diplomatic relations with the U.S. and the strength of its advocacy efforts. A major challenge for Liberia, like other African nations, is the lack of a structured reintegration program for deported citizens. Without proper support systems, deportees often face difficulty in adjusting to life back home. This can lead to further social unrest, economic instability, and sometimes a return to the very circumstances that drove them to migrate in the first place. The importance of reintegration programs. The absence of effective reintegration programs for deportees can lead to serious economic and social consequences. As mentioned earlier, Liberia has struggled with reintegrating deportees in the past. Under the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration, many deportees from the U.S. faced detention upon their return. This created an additional burden on Liberia's already struggling economy, as many deportees had difficulty finding employment or rebuilding their lives after years abroad. Given the potential for many deportees under the current administration, the need for a comprehensive reintegration strategy is more critical than ever. The government must develop policies that provide deported individuals with opportunities for employment, education, and health care. Reintegration programs should not only help deportees adjust to life in Liberia, but also prevent social unrest and reduce the risk of deportees being drawn into criminal activities due to a lack of opportunities. Additionally, African governments must work together to create a regional approach to migration management. Cooperation between African states can help ensure that deported citizens are returned to environments that offer the best possible chance of reintegration. Regional organizations such as the African Union, AU, can play a vital role in coordinating efforts to support migrants and deportees. This can include developing regional frameworks for migration management, improving diplomatic relations, and securing the welfare of migrants through cross-border collaboration. A broader African perspective: migration, development, and policy. The issue of deportation is a stark reminder of the complex relationship between migration and development in Africa. As African nations continue to face challenges related to poverty, unemployment, and political instability, many individuals will seek better opportunities abroad. This puts pressure on host countries, particularly in Europe and North America, which are already grappling with their own internal issues, such as rising populism, economic uncertainty, and the political fallout from migration. Africa's approach to migration must therefore be multifaceted, addressing both the root causes of migration and the challenges posed by deportation. Developing strong, sustainable economies and improving governance are key to reducing the number of people who feel compelled to leave their home countries in search of better opportunities. Moreover, African nations must invest in building stronger diplomatic ties with countries that host large African migrant populations to ensure that their citizens are protected and that deportation processes are managed with dignity. As this situation unfolds in Liberia, it serves as a reminder of the broader challenges facing the African continent. The key to addressing these challenges lies in collective action, both at the national and regional levels, to ensure that the rights of African migrants are protected and that countries like Liberia can successfully reintegrate their citizens and avoid the economic and social consequences of large-scale deportations. The need for comprehensive migration policies that address both the push and pull factors of migration is now more pressing than ever. Africa must rise to the occasion, leveraging diplomatic efforts, regional cooperation, and national policies to safeguard its citizens and ensure their well-being in the face of a changing global migration landscape. As Liberia continues to engage the U.S. on this matter, it remains to be seen whether its diplomatic efforts will succeed in mitigating the impacts of deportation. In the meantime, the global community must watch closely as this issue unfolds, offering support where possible to ensure that the rights and dignity of deported individuals are respected. The humanitarian impact of deportations on Liberia. The deportation of thousands of Liberians from the United States is not only an economic issue but a deeply humanitarian one. As Liberia prepares for the potential return of over 1,500 citizens, the psychological and social toll on the individuals involved cannot be ignored. For many, the U.S. is home, where they may have lived for decades, built families, and established careers. The prospect of being uprooted and sent back to Liberia is traumatic, as many of these deportees may not have strong ties to their homeland or may have little to no memory of their life before migrating. One of the primary concerns for these deportees is the disruption of their lives. Returning to Liberia may present a harsh adjustment, especially for those who have lived in the U.S. for an extended period. Many have become accustomed to a different way of life, one that offers access to better healthcare, education, and job opportunities. In contrast, Liberia, despite its recovery after years of civil war, remains one of the poorest countries in the world, facing significant infrastructure and social challenges. The country continues to struggle with high unemployment rates, inadequate healthcare, and insufficient educational resources. The psychological impact on deportees should also be considered. Being forced to leave the country they have called home for years or even decades can lead to feelings of alienation, anxiety, and depression. These emotions are compounded by the stress of reintegrating into a society that may not have the infrastructure or resources to support their needs. Additionally, the stigma of deportation can further isolate individuals, as they may be seen as failures or as having been rejected by their host country. In response to these challenges, civil society groups in Liberia and the diaspora have voiced their concerns, urging the government to implement programs that will support the reintegration of deported citizens. These programs must include access to psychological counseling, job training, and financial assistance to help ease the transition and reduce the likelihood of deportees returning to the same precarious circumstances that led them to migrate in the first place. Regional cooperation on migration management. The issue of deportations highlights a growing need for regional cooperation on migration management. Africa, with its high levels of emigration, must come together to create policies that protect the rights of migrants while also managing the pressures that come with migration flows. The African Union, AU, could play a more significant role in advocating for African citizens abroad, ensuring that African migrants are treated humanely and that their rights are upheld in foreign countries. Regional cooperation could also help African governments, including Liberia, to develop more robust systems for reintegrating deported citizens. Countries within the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, for example, could work together to share best practices and coordinate their efforts to help returning migrants. This could include harmonizing policies on work permits, healthcare, and social services for deportees. By working together, these countries could mitigate the economic and social impacts of large-scale deportations and ensure that deportees are given the opportunities they need to rebuild their lives. Additionally, Africa could benefit from forging stronger diplomatic relations with countries that host large migrant populations, such as the United States, South Africa, and various European nations. By fostering positive relations with these countries, African governments could negotiate better terms for their citizens living abroad, ensuring that their rights are protected and that deportations, if they occur, are handled in a fair and transparent manner. Migration as a driver of development. Beyond the immediate humanitarian concerns, migration also presents opportunities for Africa's development. Remittances from the African diaspora play a crucial role in the economies of many African countries, including Liberia. In 2024, remittances to sub-Saharan Africa were projected to surpass $50 billion, making them one of the largest sources of external financial flows to the continent. These funds are vital for families and communities, helping to improve living standards, fund education, and support local businesses. However, the potential loss of these remittances due to large-scale deportations could have long-term economic consequences for Liberia and other African countries with large diasporas. The sudden return of migrants who no longer have the financial support of their families abroad may strain Liberia's already fragile economy. This could lead to increased poverty levels and heightened social instability. To mitigate these risks, African governments need to find ways to harness the potential of their diasporas for development purposes. This could include creating policies that encourage investment from the diaspora into local businesses and development projects. Governments could also implement programs that allow migrants to continue contributing to their home countries, even if they are unable to return permanently. For example, digital platforms could be created to allow diaspora members to invest in African businesses or contribute to development initiatives remotely. The role of civil society in addressing deportations. Civil society organizations have long played an essential role in advocating for the rights of migrants and deportees. In Liberia, organizations such as the Liberian Refugee Repatriation and Resettlement Commission, LRRC, have been at the forefront of advocating for the reintegration of deported citizens. These organizations often work alongside international partners, such as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, to provide assistance to deportees upon their return. These civil society organizations have been vocal in calling for a more structured approach to reintegration, one that includes not just job training and financial assistance, but also a commitment to addressing the underlying causes of migration. By providing support to deportees and working with the government to improve reintegration processes, civil society can help mitigate the negative impacts of deportations and ensure that migrants are given the tools they need to succeed. Additionally, civil society can play a vital role in raising awareness about the challenges faced by deportees, both in Liberia and abroad. Advocacy campaigns can help put pressure on governments to adopt more compassionate and supportive policies, ensuring that deportation is not the end of the road for migrants, but a chance for them to reintegrate into society successfully. Looking ahead, a path forward for Liberia and Africa. As Liberia navigates the delicate issue of deportations, it is crucial for the government to prioritize the welfare of its citizens and adopt a forward-thinking approach that focuses on long-term solutions. This includes developing comprehensive reintegration programs, strengthening diplomatic ties with host countries, and working with regional and international partners to address the root causes of migration. Moreover, Liberia's experience can serve as a case study for other African nations grappling with similar challenges. By sharing lessons learned and collaborating with other African countries, Liberia can contribute to the development of a more cohesive and supportive approach to migration that benefits both migrants and their home countries. The international community must also do its part by ensuring that deportations are handled fairly and that the rights of migrants are protected. While it is essential for countries to address illegal immigration, it is equally important to ensure that deportation processes are carried out with respect for human dignity and the well-being of individuals. As the deportation issue unfolds, Liberia's proactive approach, combined with the support of civil society and the broader international community, will be key to mitigating the challenges faced by deportees and ensuring that they are able to reintegrate successfully into their communities. The outcome of this process will be a critical test of Liberia's ability to balance diplomatic efforts with the need to protect its citizens abroad and foster a stable, prosperous future at home. The role of international organizations in managing deportations. In addition to national governments and civil society organizations, international entities such as the United Nations, UN, and the International Organization for Migration, IOM, have significant roles to play in the management of deportations. Their involvement in the deportation process, especially regarding vulnerable populations, is crucial for ensuring that international standards of human rights are upheld. The UN has long advocated for the protection of migrants and the fair treatment of deported individuals. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR in particular, has guidelines that encourage countries to avoid mass deportations without providing proper safeguards for the reintegration of deportees. These guidelines include providing deportees with access to legal representation, ensuring they are not subjected to mistreatment, and facilitating their safe return to their countries of origin. The UNHCR has also emphasized the importance of developing a whole-of-government approach to migration that involves multiple sectors: foreign affairs, justice, health, education, and social protection, together to create an environment where migrants can be protected and treated with dignity. If Liberia can engage the UN and other international bodies effectively, it could access support and resources that could assist in the reintegration process, providing a safety net for those returning from the U.S. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, has a similar mandate, providing technical and financial support to governments and organizations that work to manage migration. IOM's programs include supporting voluntary return and reintegration, particularly for deportees who may be at risk of exploitation or marginalization upon return. The organization also works with countries like Liberia to develop reintegration strategies that help deportees rebuild their lives by providing access to education, vocational training, and financial support to start businesses. Both the UN and IOM can assist Liberia by providing expertise in managing the challenges of reintegrating deportees. The government could partner with these organizations to strengthen its capacity for reintegration, ensuring that deportees have the resources and opportunities needed to thrive upon their return. Challenges to Liberia's diplomatic efforts. Despite the proactive diplomatic steps taken by Liberia, the country faces significant challenges in negotiating with the U.S. government. One major hurdle is the current political climate in the U.S., where immigration policies are highly politicized. With the Trump administration having passed several controversial immigration laws, including the Locke and Riley Act, Liberia's government may find it difficult to sway the U.S. toward a more lenient approach. Another challenge is the strained diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and some African countries, including Liberia, due to differing perspectives on migration and sovereignty. The U.S. government's primary concern is managing illegal immigration and addressing domestic issues such as crime, which often leads to the prioritization of deportation over the welfare of individuals involved. Liberian officials will need to navigate this delicate situation carefully, striking a balance between asserting their citizens' rights and respecting the U.S. government's stance on immigration enforcement. Furthermore, Liberia's dependence on foreign aid and its diplomatic reliance on the U.S. complicate the situation. As Liberia seeks to maintain a positive relationship with the U.S. while protecting its citizens, it may be forced to make compromises that could leave deportees without adequate protection or support. The role of media in shaping public opinion and policy. The media has a powerful role to play in shaping public opinion and influencing government policy, particularly in the context of deportations. In Liberia, as well as in the U.S., media outlets can serve as a platform for advocacy and the protection of migrant rights. Liberian media outlets have already started covering the deportation issue extensively, shedding light on the potential consequences for families and communities. Media coverage can be an effective tool for raising awareness about the human rights violations that often accompany deportations, such as the failure to provide adequate notice, the lack of support for deportees, and the dangers faced by individuals upon their return. Moreover, international media can amplify Liberia's concerns on the global stage, pressuring the U.S. to reconsider its approach or provide better conditions for deportees. By highlighting personal stories of deported Liberians and the emotional and social costs of such decisions, the media can draw attention to the need for a more humane immigration policy. This could encourage international dialogue on how to better manage deportation processes while safeguarding human rights and ensuring that deportees are not left vulnerable upon their return to their home countries. The economic impact of deportations. Beyond the social and humanitarian consequences, deportations have significant economic implications for Liberia. The potential return of over 1,500 deported citizens could place additional strain on the country's already fragile economy. Liberia's economy has been struggling due to various factors, including the aftermath of the Civil War, limited infrastructure, and a dependence on a few key industries such as mining and agriculture. The sudden influx of deportees could exacerbate unemployment, increase the demand for social services, and create competition for scarce resources, especially if reintegration programs are not adequately funded or structured. Moreover, the deported individuals who were contributing to the U.S. economy by working and sending remittances may not have the same opportunities in Liberia. Many of these individuals may have developed skills and knowledge that are not easily transferable to the local job market, leading to increased frustration and economic hardship. The government's ability to manage this economic burden will be critical to ensure that deportees are able to reintegrate successfully. While remittances from the diaspora have been a vital source of income for Liberia, the loss of these remittances due to deportation could lead to a further economic downturn. Liberia must find ways to diversify its economy, create new jobs, and build infrastructure to ensure that both returning citizens and the rest of the population have access to opportunities for economic growth and stability. A regional strategy for migration management. Liberia's deportation dilemma underscores the need for a more regional approach to migration management across Africa. The continent has a history of high levels of internal migration, with millions of Africans moving across borders in search of work, stability, and better living conditions. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which Liberia is a part of, could play an important role in addressing the migration challenge through regional cooperation. By developing a cohesive migration policy that includes provisions for deportation, reintegration, and the protection of migrants' rights, ECOWAS could provide a framework for member states to manage migration flows in a coordinated and effective manner. A regional approach could also help create more job opportunities and improve living conditions in countries of origin, reducing the need for people to migrate in the first place. This could include initiatives to improve education, healthcare, and infrastructure, creating an environment that encourages people to stay and contribute to their local economies. A path toward regional and global cooperation. As Liberia continues to navigate the deportation issue, both national and international efforts are required to address the complexities of migration. The government must continue its diplomatic engagement with the U.S., while also working to develop robust reintegration strategies for returning citizens. At the same time, regional cooperation within Africa and international collaboration through organizations like the UN and IOM are essential to developing more sustainable migration management solutions. The global community must recognize the challenges posed by deportations and work together to create policies that prioritize human dignity, support reintegration efforts, and provide a fair process for migrants. Moving forward, Liberia's experience can serve as a critical turning point in how African countries approach migration and deportation issues. By adopting a forward-thinking, collaborative, and humanitarian approach, Liberia can navigate this challenge and ensure a brighter future for both its returning citizens and the country. The role of international law in addressing deportations. International law plays a pivotal role in the management of deportations, particularly with regard to ensuring that the rights of deported individuals are respected. A range of international agreements and conventions outline the obligations of states to protect the rights of migrants and prevent mistreatment during the deportation process. These agreements include the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, and various regional treaties under the auspices of the African Union. Liberia, like many other countries, is bound by these international treaties, which establish a framework for protecting the rights of its citizens, even when they are living abroad or are subject to deportation. Liberia must ensure that its citizens are treated with dignity and fairness, not only during the deportation process, but also upon their return to the country. The Liberian government is tasked with ensuring that deportees are not subjected to violence, detention, or other human rights violations upon their arrival. Moreover, international law mandates that deportation should not separate families or expose individuals to conditions that would violate their right to safety and security. Given that Liberia is a member of the African Union and a signatory to various international human rights instruments, it must work within these frameworks to advocate for its citizens. The government can approach international bodies such as the UN Human Rights Council or the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to ensure that the deportation process is conducted in a way that upholds the rights of deported individuals. One key aspect of international law is the principle of non-refoulement, which prohibits the forced return of individuals to countries where they may face persecution, torture, or inhumane treatment. Liberia could raise this principle in its diplomatic engagements with the U.S., emphasizing the risks deportees may face upon their return. While Liberia is not currently considered a country where individuals face systematic persecution, the general principle of non-refoulement remains relevant, particularly when deportees may face hardships in reintegrating into society without proper support. The intersection of immigration and national security concerns. While the human rights of deportees are central to the discussion, the issue of deportations also intersects with national security concerns, especially from the perspective of the U.S. government. The Trump administration's stricter immigration policies, including the Locke and Riley Act, reflect an increasing concern over national security and the potential threat posed by undocumented immigrants, particularly those involved in criminal activities. The focus on criminal deportations, especially those accused of theft or violent crimes, is a clear indication that national security is a priority in U.S. immigration policy. From Liberia's perspective, this presents a complex challenge. The government must balance its diplomatic relations with the U.S., which is one of Liberia's key allies, while also ensuring the protection and safety of its citizens. Liberia cannot ignore the concerns of the U.S. government regarding undocumented immigration, particularly in the wake of high-profile incidents involving undocumented immigrants committing crimes. However, it must also ensure that the deportation process is fair and that its citizens are not disproportionately impacted, especially those without criminal records. For Liberia, the dilemma is further compounded by the social and economic consequences of deportations. Liberia's fragile economy cannot absorb large numbers of returnees without putting immense strain on its already limited resources. Moreover, the deportation of individuals who have been living in the U.S. for years raises concerns about their ability to reintegrate into a society that may no longer be familiar to them. In many cases, deportees will lack the necessary skills or networks to succeed in Liberia's job market, further exacerbating unemployment and social unrest. In this context, Liberia must navigate the fine line between maintaining its relationship with the U.S. and addressing the legitimate concerns of its citizens. The government should continue to engage in diplomatic dialogue with the U.S. to ensure that the deportation process is carried out in a way that considers both national security concerns and the rights of Liberian citizens. The impact of deportations on families and communities. The impact of deportations extends beyond the deported individuals themselves to affect entire families and communities. Many of the Liberians living in the U.S. have established roots, raised families, and becoming integral members of their communities. The potential deportation of one family member can have a devastating impact on the entire household, particularly if the deportee is a primary breadwinner or caregiver. Families left behind often face economic hardships, as the loss of a family member can lead to financial instability. In some cases, families in the U.S. rely on remittances sent by their relatives in Liberia, which are vital for paying for education, healthcare, and daily living expenses. The disruption of these financial flows can have a ripple effect, particularly for those already living in poverty. In Liberia, the return of deported individuals can similarly strain family dynamics. Deportees may face difficulties reconnecting with relatives who have moved on or adapted to new ways of life in their absence. The reintegration process, which could involve emotional, psychological, and financial challenges, can be complicated by the stigma attached to deportation. Families may be reluctant to support deportees who have been labeled as failures or rejected by the country that they once called home. To mitigate the impact on families, the Liberian government must consider ways to support those affected by deportation, both in the U.S. and in Liberia. This could include providing financial assistance to families left behind, facilitating communication between deportees and their families, and offering emotional support to help families adjust to the changes caused by deportation. Reforming Liberia's domestic migration and reintegration systems. Considering the growing threat of deportations, Liberia must take steps to strengthen its domestic migration and reintegration systems. Currently, the country does not have a comprehensive policy framework for managing the return of large numbers of deported citizens. This gap in the system could result in deportees facing severe challenges upon their arrival, with little support from the government or local communities. Reforming Liberia's reintegration systems is essential for ensuring that deportees are given a fair chance at rebuilding their lives. The government could look to other countries that have successfully implemented reintegration programs for returning migrants, such as Rwanda, which has developed a comprehensive reintegration plan for its returnees from the diaspora. Rwanda's model includes job training, education, healthcare, and microfinance programs to help returnees reintegrate into society and contribute to the country's economic growth. For Liberia, a similar approach could be adopted, but with a focus on creating sustainable livelihoods for deportees and fostering community support. Reintegration programs could include partnerships with the private sector to create job opportunities, collaborations with educational institutions to provide training and skills development, and initiatives to improve healthcare access for returnees who may require medical attention. By investing in the reintegration process, Liberia can ensure that deportees are able to contribute positively to their communities and reduce the risk of social and economic marginalization. Regional and global support for Liberia's reintegration efforts. Finally, Liberia must not shoulder the burden of reintegrating deported citizens alone. Regional organizations like ECOWAS and global entities such as the UN and the IOM can play a crucial role in supporting Liberia's efforts to create a more effective reintegration program. ECOWAS could coordinate regional migration policies, ensuring that deportees are given the support they need not just in Liberia, but across West Africa. The IOM could also provide technical assistance and financial support for reintegration projects, helping Liberia to build the infrastructure needed to support returnees. Additionally, international donors and humanitarian organizations can help provide the resources necessary for Liberia to address the challenges posed by deportations. These efforts will not only help deportees reintegrate into society, but also contribute to the broader goal of sustainable development in Liberia and West Africa. Liberia's handling of the deportation crisis is a defining moment for the country. It offers a chance to reflect on the complexities of migration and the challenges faced by African governments in managing their citizens abroad. Liberia's ability to engage diplomatically, provide support to deported citizens, and work with international partners will determine how effectively the country navigates this issue. The long-term success of Liberia's reintegration efforts depends on the collaboration of local, regional, and international actors who must work together to ensure that deportees are given the support they need to rebuild their lives and contribute to their communities. Strengthening Liberia's diplomatic engagement, key considerations. As Liberia faces the complex challenge of managing deportations, its diplomatic engagement with key international partners, particularly the U.S., is critical. The country must strengthen its diplomatic channels to ensure that it is not just reacting to deportations, but proactively shaping the discourse around migration policy. A key aspect of this engagement is finding ways to influence U.S. immigration policy in a manner that is aligned with Liberia's national interests, while also respecting the sovereignty and security concerns of the U.S. One of the ways Liberia can bolster its diplomatic efforts is by appealing to shared historical ties with the U.S., which has long had a special relationship with Liberia, given their shared history as former colonies and cultural connections. By leveraging these historical ties, Liberia may be able to open a more constructive dialogue with U.S. policymakers, ensuring that the interests of its citizens are better represented in future discussions on immigration. Additionally, Liberia could focus on strengthening its ties with influential African American groups and advocacy organizations that have been active in promoting African rights and interests in the U.S. These groups, many of which have long worked on issues related to immigration and human rights, can serve as allies in Liberia's efforts to protect its citizens living in the U.S. By fostering these relationships, Liberia can help amplify its voice in the U.S. and generate more support for its position. However, Liberia's diplomatic efforts must not be solely focused on the U.S. It is equally important for the country to engage with other international stakeholders who have an interest in migration and deportation matters. Multilateral organizations like the African Union, AU, and the United Nations, UN, provide valuable platforms for Liberia to advocate for its citizens, not just in the context of deportation, but also in terms of broader migration policy. Through these organizations, Liberia can push for reforms to ensure that the deportation process is fair and that migrants are treated with respect and dignity. The AU, with its mission to promote peace, security, and development across Africa, could provide critical support to Liberia by creating a framework for managing intra-Africa migration and helping countries facing high numbers of deported citizens. By working within the AU structures, Liberia can gain access to resources, expertise, and support for its reintegration programs, which are vital to ensuring that deported individuals are given the opportunities they need to succeed back home. The need for comprehensive data on migration patterns. To effectively address the challenges posed by deportations, Liberia must invest in collecting and analyzing comprehensive data on migration patterns, both within the country and abroad. Data collection is essential for understanding the scope of the issue and designing policies that address the specific needs of returning citizens. In the context of deportations, accurate data can help the government understand where deportees are coming from, the reasons for their deportation, and the specific challenges they will face upon return. Liberia could partner with international organizations like the IOM or UNHCR to gather this data and build a database that tracks migration flows, reasons for deportation, and the socioeconomic status of deportees. This data could be invaluable in shaping reintegration programs and ensuring that they are tailored to the needs of different groups of deportees. For example, deportees who have lived in the U.S. for many years may have different needs than those who have recently migrated and may require different levels of support. Additionally, data on the effectiveness of reintegration programs in other African countries could be useful for Liberia in designing its own programs. By understanding what has worked in other nations and adapting those practices to Liberia's unique context, the government can improve the chances of successful reintegration and minimize the negative impact of deportations. Incentivizing returnees to contribute to Liberia's development. One way to mitigate the economic challenges posed by deportations is by incentivizing returnees to contribute to Liberia's development. Deportees, particularly those who have spent years working abroad, may possess valuable skills, knowledge, and networks that can be leveraged to support local development initiatives. Liberia's government could work to create programs that tap into the potential of deportees, encouraging them to invest in local businesses, mentor young entrepreneurs, and contribute to social development efforts. For example, Liberia could offer tax incentives, access to startup capital, or specialized training for deportees interested in starting businesses or contributing to key sectors such as agriculture, technology, or healthcare. By supporting deportees in starting their own businesses, the government could not only provide them with a means of livelihood, but also encourage job creation and economic growth. Success of such programs could have far-reaching benefits, not just for deportees but for the wider community, as it would create a cycle of growth and opportunity that strengthens the national economy. Incentivizing returnees to contribute to Liberia's development could also help shift the narrative around deportations. Instead of viewing deportees solely as a burden, they could be seen as contributors to Liberia's long-term economic growth and stability. This shift in perspective could reduce the stigma associated with deportation and encourage greater support for reintegration programs both within the government and civil society. Leveraging Africa's diaspora networks for development. The African diaspora plays a critical role in the development of the continent, providing not only remittances but also skills, expertise, and investment. Liberia, like many African countries, has a large and active diaspora community in the U.S. and other countries around the world. The country's government can work to strengthen ties with its diaspora, to ensure that deportees are supported, and that the potential of the diaspora is fully harnessed for national development. One strategy to leverage the diaspora's potential is through the creation of investment funds or networks that enable diaspora members to contribute to development projects in Liberia. These initiatives could focus on sectors such as infrastructure, education, healthcare, and small business development. By involving the diaspora in Liberia's growth, the government can create a stronger, more sustainable model of development that benefits both those at home and those abroad. Furthermore, Liberia can partner with diaspora organizations to facilitate the reintegration process for deported citizens. Many members of the Liberian diaspora have experience in navigating migration challenges and can provide valuable advice, mentorship, and resources to deportees. These diaspora networks can act as intermediaries, helping deported citizens reintegrate into society and find opportunities for personal and professional growth. This collaboration between the government, diaspora, and deportees could create a powerful network of support that fosters both individual and national development. Reinforcing the role of local communities in reintegration. While the government and international organizations have crucial roles to play, the success of reintegration programs ultimately depends on the support and engagement of local communities. Communities must be equipped to receive and welcome deported citizens, and local leaders must play an active role in helping deportees reintegrate. Building local awareness and understanding about the challenges faced by deportees is key to ensuring that they are accepted and supported upon their return. Local communities can provide social networks, emotional support, and practical resources that deportees need to rebuild their lives. For example, community-based initiatives such as job placement programs, housing assistance, and social reintegration activities could be implemented to make the process smoother for returnees. Community engagement is also important in breaking down the stigma associated with deportation. By promoting narratives of resilience, success, and contribution, Liberia can foster a more positive outlook on deportation and reintegration. Communities that actively participate in these efforts will not only contribute to the well-being of deported individuals, but also strengthen the social facility of the country toward a collaborative and sustainable migration system. The deportation crisis in Liberia offers a unique opportunity to reflect on the broader challenges of migration, reintegration, and development across Africa. It underscores the need for a collaborative approach that involves not only the government, but also international organizations, civil society, the diaspora, and local communities. Liberia's response to the deportation issue will be a test of its diplomatic skills, its commitment to human rights, and its ability to create sustainable policies that promote long-term development. As Liberia continues to engage in dialogue with the U.S. and other international partners, it must also look inward, investing in its own systems and structures to ensure that deported citizens are able to reintegrate successfully and contribute to the country's growth. By developing a comprehensive and forward-thinking approach to migration, Liberia can transform the challenges posed by deportation into opportunities for growth, stability, and prosperity. The journey ahead will require resilience, cooperation, and commitment, but it is a path that can lead to a stronger and more unified Liberia in the future. Expanding the role of the private sector in reintegration. While the government, civil society, and international organizations play pivotal roles in supporting deportees, the private sector in Liberia also has an essential part to play in the reintegration process. By partnering with the government and other stakeholders, businesses can create opportunities for returning migrants that help stimulate the economy and promote long-term sustainable development. The private sector can contribute by offering employment opportunities for deportees, particularly in sectors that are experiencing growth, such as construction, agriculture, and technology. Companies can offer training programs tailored to the skills of deported individuals, helping them transition back into the workforce. Providing vocational training and skills development would help deportees become more competitive in Liberia's job market and contribute positively to the local economy. Moreover, Liberia's private sector could invest in community-based projects that provide social and economic support to deportees. This could include infrastructure development projects, such as building low-cost housing or enhancing access to basic services like water and healthcare. By focusing on creating jobs and improving community welfare, the private sector can help reduce the strain on the government's resources and contribute to the long-term success of reintegration programs. In addition, businesses in the diaspora, particularly those owned by Liberians, can play a vital role in supporting their country of origin. Liberia's diaspora entrepreneurs have often been key drivers of economic growth in the host countries, and they could transfer their knowledge, expertise, and financial resources to Liberia's private sector. By encouraging investment from the diaspora, Liberia could expand its access to capital and create a more diverse, dynamic economy that benefits both returnees and the broader population. Education and capacity building for future generations. Another important aspect of managing migration and deportations is ensuring that future generations have access to education and opportunities that allow them to thrive both within Liberia and abroad. The country's education system must be strengthened to ensure that young Liberians have the skills they need to be competitive in the global workforce. If Liberia can develop its human capital through education, it will reduce the pressure to migrate abroad and build a more robust domestic labor force. Deportees, especially those who have spent significant time in foreign countries, often bring with them valuable skills and knowledge that could be used to support Liberia's educational system. Many returnees have experience in different industries, sectors, and technologies that can be shared with the younger generation. Liberia could leverage the skills and experiences of deported individuals to enrich its educational landscape, for example, by inviting returnees to serve as guest speakers, mentors, or trainers in various fields. Additionally, if Liberia can invest in education for its youth and strengthen its institutions, the push factors that lead to illegal migration could be reduced. As more opportunities for education and career development become available, young Liberians may find it less necessary to seek opportunities abroad. This focus on education and capacity building would not only help prevent future migrations, but also equip the younger generation with the tools they need to become leaders in Liberia's development. International support for economic resilience. To address the challenges posed by deportations and the reintegration of returnees, Liberia could also seek international financial support to bolster its economic resilience. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, World Bank, and other development partners can offer grants, loans, and technical assistance to support Liberia's reintegration efforts. These financial resources could be used to fund job creation programs, infrastructure development, and vocational training initiatives, all of which are vital for providing deportees with a foundation for rebuilding their lives. International aid, however, must go beyond short-term humanitarian assistance and focus on building Liberia's long-term capacity for economic growth. Through strategic partnerships with international financial institutions, Liberia can develop projects that generate sustainable economic benefits, not just for deportees, but for the broader population. These projects could focus on key sectors such as renewable energy, agriculture, and healthcare, which would benefit Liberia's economic development and provide employment opportunities for both returnees and local citizens. By working closely with international organizations and donors, Liberia can secure the financial support necessary to implement large-scale reintegration programs that address the root causes of migration. With the right investment, Liberia could improve the livelihoods of its citizens, create new opportunities, and ensure that the country is better positioned to manage future challenges related to migration. Addressing social cohesion and unity. The reintegration of deportees also presents an opportunity to strengthen social cohesion within Liberia. Deportees who return to Liberia often face challenges not just in terms of economic reintegration, but also in terms of social acceptance. In some cases, they may be seen as outsiders or failures, particularly if they return empty-handed or without a clear plan for their future. This social stigma can make it more difficult for deportees to rebuild their lives and re-establish connections with their communities. To address this, Liberia must foster a culture of inclusion and unity, emphasizing the importance of solidarity among all Liberians, regardless of their migration status. The government, civil society organizations, and community leaders should work to shift the narrative surrounding deportees, presenting them not as burdens, but as individuals who have the potential to contribute to Liberia's growth. Public awareness campaigns, social media engagement, and community-based initiatives can help challenge negative stereotypes and promote understanding and empathy for returnees. Promoting unity and social cohesion will be crucial in ensuring that deportees feel welcome and supported upon their return. It will also help prevent the marginalization of certain groups, which could contribute to social unrest or criminal behavior. Building a more inclusive society will not only benefit deportees, but also strengthen Liberia's social fabric and promote greater national unity. Long-term strategies for migration and development. Looking toward the future, Liberia must adopt a comprehensive long-term strategy to address migration and its impact on the country's development. While reintegration programs are essential for managing deportations, Liberia must also consider the broader issue of migration as part of its development agenda. Sustainable migration management is not just about dealing with the consequences of deportation, but also about addressing the factors that drive migration in the first place. This means tackling the root causes of migration, such as poverty, unemployment, lack of access to education, and political instability. Liberia must invest in creating an environment where its citizens can thrive, both at home and abroad. This requires long-term investments in infrastructure, education, and job creation, as well as policies that promote good governance and the rule of law. Additionally, Liberia must develop a forward-thinking migration policy that accounts for both the domestic and international dimensions of migration. This policy should outline the country's approach to migration management, including measures for preventing irregular migration, protecting the rights of migrants, and ensuring that those who are deported can reintegrate successfully. The policy should also include provisions for fostering regional cooperation, as migration is often a cross-border issue that requires collaboration between neighboring countries and international partners. Long-term strategies for migration and development. Looking toward the future, Liberia must adopt a comprehensive long-term strategy to address migration and its impact on the country's development. While reintegration programs are essential for managing deportations, Liberia must also consider the broader issue of migration as part of its development agenda. Sustainable migration management is not just about dealing with the consequences of deportation, but also about addressing the factors that drive migration in the first place. This means tackling the root causes of migration, such as poverty, unemployment, lack of access to education, and political instability. Liberia must invest in creating an environment where its citizens can thrive, both at home and abroad. This requires long-term investments in infrastructure, education, and job creation, as well as policies that promote good governance and the rule of law. Additionally, Liberia must develop a forward-thinking migration policy that accounts for both the domestic and international dimensions of migration. This policy should outline the country's approach to migration management, including measures for preventing irregular migration, protecting the rights of migrants, and ensuring that those who are deported can reintegrate successfully. The policy should also include provisions for fostering regional cooperation, as migration is often a cross-border issue that requires collaboration between neighboring countries and international partners. By taking a holistic approach to migration and development, Liberia can create a sustainable framework that not only addresses the immediate challenges of deportations, but also sets the stage for long-term growth and stability. The country's future depends on its ability to manage migration in a way that benefits all its citizens, both at home and abroad. A unified path forward. The challenges presented by the deportation of Liberians from the U.S. are significant, but they also offer an opportunity for Liberia to rethink its approach to migration, reintegration, and development. Through diplomatic engagement, international collaboration, the support of civil society, and private sector involvement, Liberia can turn the deportation crisis into a catalyst for long-term growth and social cohesion. By focusing on education, economic development, and social integration, Liberia can ensure that deportees have the resources and opportunities they need to succeed, while also building a more resilient and inclusive society. Ultimately, the success of Liberia's reintegration efforts will depend on its ability to create a collaborative, sustainable migration system that benefits not only those returning from abroad, but also future generations of Liberians. As the government continues to engage with the U.S. and international partners, it must remain steadfast in its commitment to protecting the rights of its citizens and ensuring that Liberia is a place where all can thrive. The journey ahead is complex, but with a unified approach, Liberia can emerge stronger and more capable of addressing the challenges posed by migration in the 21st century. Building a more resilient social safety net. As Liberia continues to address the issues surrounding deportations, one crucial aspect that cannot be overlooked is the importance of strengthening the country's social safety net. For many deported individuals, especially those who have been living in the U.S. for extended periods, the absence of social services, health care, and financial assistance upon return can exacerbate their struggles. The existing support systems in Liberia are often inadequate to meet the needs of deportees, who may face unemployment, limited access to health care, and social isolation. To address these challenges, the government, in collaboration with civil society organizations, must work to create a more robust social safety net that includes services such as healthcare, housing, education, and job placement assistance. By expanding social services and ensuring that deportees have access to the resources they need to survive and thrive, Liberia can help minimize the economic and social impact of deportation. For instance, expanding access to healthcare services for deportees could ensure that they receive medical attention for any physical or mental health issues resulting from their experiences abroad. This would be particularly important for deportees who may have been exposed to traumatic experiences during their time in the U.S., or face chronic health conditions exacerbated by the lack of access to health care. Additionally, the government could establish housing assistance programs that help deportees secure temporary or permanent housing upon their return. This could involve providing subsidies or working with local developers to create affordable housing options for returnees. Stable housing is a critical foundation for successful reintegration, as it provides a secure environment for deportees to rebuild their lives. Job placement programs could also be expanded to help deportees find employment in Liberia's growing sectors. These programs could provide job training, apprenticeships, and partnerships with local businesses to create opportunities for deportees to earn a living. Through these initiatives, Liberia could harness the skills and potential of its returning citizens, reducing the likelihood of economic instability and social unrest. Enhancing education as a migration deterrent. Education has long been recognized as one of the most effective tools for addressing migration trends. By improving access to quality education within Liberia, the government can reduce the number of individuals who feel compelled to migrate in search of better opportunities. When citizens have access to education that equips them with the skills needed to succeed in the local labor market, they are less likely to seek opportunities abroad. Liberia can build a stronger foundation for the future by ensuring that young people have access to education that is relevant to the needs of the country's growing economy. Investing in education not only empowers individuals, but also drives national development. By focusing on vocational training and technical education, Liberia can equip its youth with the skills needed in key industries such as agriculture, technology, healthcare, and renewable energy. Moreover, by establishing partnerships with local and international educational institutions, Liberia can offer its citizens the opportunity to gain valuable qualifications and certifications that are recognized globally. These qualifications can improve the prospects of young Liberians both within the country and abroad, encouraging the diaspora to invest in the local economy, while also providing a skilled workforce for industries that drive Liberia's growth. Improving education and creating career pathways for young people will reduce the push factors that lead to illegal migration. By addressing the underlying causes of migration, Liberia can build a stronger, more resilient society that offers its citizens the opportunity to succeed without the need to migrate. Harnessing technology and innovation for economic growth. In today's rapidly changing global economy, technology and innovation are powerful tools for spurring economic growth. Liberia, like many African countries, has significant potential to leverage technology to address its economic challenges and create new opportunities for its citizens, including deportees. The government can invest in digital infrastructure and provide training to both the younger generation and deportees to develop skills in fields such as software development, digital marketing, e-commerce, and data analysis. By creating an ecosystem that encourages innovation, Liberia can attract both local and international investors who are eager to tap into Africa's growing digital economy. For deported individuals, technology can provide a lifeline, offering access to online job opportunities, remote work, and e-commerce platforms that enable them to generate income without needing to physically relocate. Additionally, by promoting entrepreneurship in the tech space, Liberia can create a new generation of tech-savvy entrepreneurs who can contribute to the country's economic growth and job creation. Liberia could also work with international tech companies to provide training and mentorship for aspiring digital entrepreneurs. By facilitating these partnerships, the country can build its capacity to participate in the global digital economy, creating new pathways for economic mobility that do not rely on migration. As the digital economy continues to grow, Liberia must take proactive steps to create an environment that supports technology and innovation. This will not only benefit deportees, but also contribute to the country's broader economic development by diversifying its economy and attracting new investment. The importance of public awareness and advocacy. Public awareness and advocacy are key components in shaping public attitudes toward deportees and migration in general. Liberia must work to foster a more positive narrative surrounding deportation and reintegration, emphasizing the contributions that deported individuals can make to society. The stigma associated with deportation can be a significant barrier to reintegration, as it often leads to discrimination and social exclusion. The government, alongside civil society organizations, can launch public awareness campaigns that highlight the stories of successful reintegration and the positive impact that deportees can have on Liberia's development. By focusing on the resilience and skills that deportees bring with them, these campaigns can shift the public perception of deportation from a negative outcome to a valuable opportunity for the country's growth. Moreover, advocacy efforts should focus on educating the public about the challenges of migration and the complexities of deportation. Many people may not understand the difficult circumstances that lead individuals to migrate or the hardships that deportees face upon their return. By raising awareness and fostering empathy, Liberia can create a more supportive environment for those returning from abroad. Advocacy should also target policymakers, urging them to prioritize policies that support the reintegration of deported individuals and address the root causes of migration. By advocating for long-term structural changes in migration and development policies, Liberia can create a more sustainable and humane system that protects the rights and welfare of its citizens. The role of regional and continental cooperation in migration management. Finally, Liberia's experience with deportation highlights the need for stronger regional and continental cooperation in managing migration. Migration is not just a national issue, but a regional one that affects many African countries, especially those in West Africa. By working together, African countries can develop a collective approach to migration management that benefits all parties involved. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has an important role to play in this regard. As Liberia's regional body, ECOWAS can help facilitate cooperation between member states on issues related to migration, deportation, and reintegration. By sharing resources, expertise, and best practices, ECOWAS can support member states like Liberia in managing the return of migrants and ensuring that deportees are reintegrated successfully. At the continental level, the African Union, AU, could develop a framework for migration management that includes provisions for the protection of migrants and the creation of regional programs to support reintegration. The AU can also serve as a platform for African countries to advocate for more favorable migration policies with countries outside the continent, such as the US, that have large African diaspora populations. Through greater regional and continental cooperation, African countries can better address the challenges of migration and create systems that protect the rights of migrants while promoting economic development across the continent. This collaborative approach would ensure that Africa's migration issues are addressed in a manner that benefits both the migrants and the countries receiving them. Liberia's path to a stronger, more resilient future. Liberia's current challenges related to deportations are complex, but they also offer a unique opportunity for the country to reimagine its approach to migration, reintegration, and national development. Through diplomatic engagement, private sector involvement, education, and regional cooperation, Liberia can turn these challenges into opportunities for growth and stability. The journey ahead will require careful planning, coordination, and collaboration among all stakeholders, including the government, civil society, the private sector, international partners, and the diaspora. By focusing on the long-term needs of deportees, strengthening the country's economic resilience, and promoting social cohesion, Liberia can ensure that deportations do not become a source of instability, but rather a catalyst for growth and progress. Ultimately, Liberia's ability to manage deportations effectively and build a stronger, more inclusive society will set the stage for a more prosperous and united future. By working together, Liberia can rise to the challenges of migration, protect the rights of its citizens, and create a more sustainable and resilient nation for generations to come. Building sustainable partnerships with international stakeholders. One key factor in ensuring that Liberia's reintegration programs are successful is building strong partnerships with international stakeholders, including non-governmental organizations, NGOs, international donors, and multinational corporations. These partnerships can offer not only financial resources but also technical expertise and networks that are crucial in designing and implementing effective programs for deported individuals. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, have a long track record of providing support to migrants and refugees, including those returning from abroad. NGOs can assist by providing legal support, psychosocial counseling, and advocacy to ensure that deported individuals are treated with dignity and respect. By partnering with NGOs, Liberia can benefit from their experience in managing similar challenges and access additional resources to assist returnees. Additionally, multinational corporations with operations in Liberia could contribute by offering skills training programs, internships, and employment opportunities for deportees. These companies, particularly in industries such as mining, agriculture, and telecommunications, can play an essential role in providing stable employment for returnees, helping them rebuild their lives and reintegrate into society. Establishing public-private partnerships could facilitate the creation of more job opportunities for Liberians, including deported citizens, contributing to the nation's economic growth. Advocating for policy reform and regional cooperation. As Liberia continues to address its deportation crisis, it is essential that the country works alongside other African nations to reform migration policies at the regional level. The complexities of migration are not isolated to individual countries, and the solutions must be addressed collectively through regional frameworks. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, can play a critical role in supporting Liberia and its neighbors by developing a region-wide strategy to handle migration. This strategy should emphasize free movement of people, the protection of migrant rights, and the creation of support systems for returnees. ECOWAS can facilitate coordination between member states to ensure that deported individuals are supported and that there are no barriers to their successful reintegration. On the continental level, the African Union, AU, could establish a comprehensive framework that supports African nations in creating strong migration policies that emphasize development, human rights, and regional cooperation. A continental approach would help African nations collectively negotiate with countries outside the continent, such as the US and European nations, to ensure that African migrants are treated fairly and their rights are protected. Advice to African leaders: embrace a holistic approach to migration. For African leaders, the situation faced by Liberia serves as a wake-up call to rethink migration policies and their long-term effects on national development. The challenges of deportation and migration are shared by many African countries, and the solutions must be holistic, regionally coordinated, and based on a sustainable approach to development. African leaders must prioritize investment in economic development, job creation, and education as long-term strategies to reduce the push factors that lead to migration. Migration is often driven by a lack of opportunity at home, and it is crucial that African nations create environments where citizens feel empowered to stay and contribute to their own country's growth. This means improving infrastructure, increasing access to education, fostering innovation, and encouraging entrepreneurship. At the same time, African leaders must recognize the potential of the diaspora as a key partner in development. By building strong connections with the diaspora, African nations can leverage their resources, skills, and networks to benefit their home countries. Partnerships with the private sector, international organizations, and the diaspora can drive economic growth and contribute to creating more sustainable solutions for managing migration. Importantly, African leaders should adopt more compassionate and human-centered approaches to managing migration, whether it's through more robust reintegration programs for returnees or by pushing for fair treatment of African migrants abroad. Leaders should not view deportation solely as a challenge, but as an opportunity to foster unity, promote development, and protect the rights of their citizens. In doing so, African leaders will be able to not only manage migration better, but also ensure that migration becomes a driver for growth rather than a source of crisis. Summary of key messages. 1. Diplomatic engagement is crucial. Liberia's proactive diplomatic efforts with the U.S. are essential in managing deportations and protecting the rights of its citizens. Diplomatic channels, particularly with countries hosting large African diaspora populations, must be strengthened to ensure fair treatment for migrants. 2. Comprehensive reintegration programs. Effective reintegration programs are critical for deportees to successfully return to their home countries. These programs must include access to education, healthcare, job opportunities, and psychosocial support to ensure long-term stability for returnees. 3. Regional and continental cooperation. Liberia's experience underscores the need for regional cooperation within Africa. ECOWAS and the African Union should take a more active role in developing coordinated migration policies that protect migrants and support reintegration efforts. 4. Economic development and education as long-term solutions. African governments must focus on creating sustainable economic opportunities and improving educational systems to address the root causes of migration. Investing in the next generation will reduce the need for citizens to migrate abroad in search of better opportunities. 5. Leverage the diaspora for development. The African diaspora is a key asset for driving economic growth and development. Governments must foster stronger connections with their diaspora communities to support their countries of origin through investments, expertise, and knowledge transfer. 6. Human-centered migration policies. African leaders must adopt policies that prioritize the dignity, rights, and welfare of migrants. By focusing on human-centered policies, African countries can ensure that migration is managed in a way that contributes to national development and protects the rights of their citizens. In conclusion, Liberia's deportation crisis provides a critical lesson for African countries: the need for proactive, compassionate, and strategic approaches to migration. By engaging with international stakeholders, investing in long-term development, and fostering regional cooperation, African leaders can transform migration into an opportunity for growth and progress rather than a crisis to be managed. Thanks for watching. We hope you gained valuable insights into Liberia's proactive approach to tackling the deportation crisis. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Bold African Voice, BAV, for more comprehensive analyses on African politics, migration, and international relations. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. See you next time.